Hey gang, in this video I'm going to be covering what you need to know to pass the A+, Net+, and Security+. No matter which one you're going after, you have to be super proficient at troubleshooting. So make sure that you stay until the end of the video so I can show you exactly what you need to pass the exam. So let's get straight into it. So the first certification we're going to talk about is A+. A+ is a two-part test. It's comprised of 1001 and 1002. So the 1001 primarily focuses on hardware, and it was just recently updated and actually adds in some cloud computing and virtualization. So in the next couple of slides, we're going to learn a little bit more about A+ and go through some test questions. Let's go ahead and knock it out. All right, so the 1001 exam, you need a 675 out of 900 to pass it, right? So every CompTIA test is going to be on a scale out of 900, except CAS. CAS Plus is going to be pass or fail, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Every exam that we talk about today, you're going to have 90 minutes to complete it and a maximum of 100 questions, right? So that may seem like, damn, that's not a lot of time, and it's not. But if you get really proficient at troubleshooting and get really good at, the foundational stuff, you'll be fine when you get inside of the box. I've had students complete the test in 50, 60 minutes, right? Now, it's not a race and nothing like that. If it takes you 90 minutes, as long as you pass the damn test, that's all that matters, right? Another thing, all of the tests I'm talking about, there will be a variation of question types. It can be multiple choice, or it can be performance-based. The performance-based is going to be simulations, right? Not just a question and answer, but you actually have to perform some type of function. Usually you only get maybe 3 or 4 of those simulation or performance-based tests or questions, but those questions account for a lot of your score, all right? So basically, if you fail all the simulations, you have to get every question right to pass the actual exam, okay? So don't fret, but just know that when you get inside the box, when you get inside of the testing room, the first damn thing you're going to see after you go through all the agreements is a simulation. A simulation, right? It may be drag and drop. It may be a virtualization desktop, and you have to turn on some stuff, turn off some stuff. Just make sure that when you get inside the box, you don't get freaked out. This is Rob. I'm telling you right now, the first damn thing you're going to see is going to be a simulation, okay? So these are the objectives, domain areas that are found on the 1001, which is the first part. And just remember, you have to pass both the 1001 and 1002 to be fully A+ certified. So the first domain is mobile devices. The second is networking. The third is hardware. The fourth is virtualization and cloud computing. Last but not least, hardware and network troubleshooting. Okay? All right, so these are going to be questions and answers, right? Just to kind of get you inside the mind frame of how the question types may be on the actual exam. Now understand that most of the questions on the exam is going to be scenario-based questions, right? So when I came up with these questions, it was in that vein, it was in that mind frame. Most of the questions are going to be kind of long, right? So you got to be able to run through the question and decipher and pull out what you need to pull out so you can be successful on the exam, okay? So here we go. Jenny just replaced her cracked laptop screen. She powers the laptop up and everything seems to work fine until she tries to surf the web. She notices she is no longer connected to the wireless router. What most likely has occurred? Give you some time to think about that. So what do we think? Perfect. Easy, easy, easy. The Wi-Fi antenna has been disconnected or damaged. So on laptops, the Wi-Fi antenna is usually located directly next to the webcam, because when you flip up the laptop, that's the highest point of the laptop, so they can give you the best reception. And sometimes if you replace the screen, you can actually damage the actual Wi-Fi antenna. It can become disconnected or it can become damaged. Okay? Next up, Little Millie is trying to pair his device with a fellow artist so they can swap songs. Both singers' Bluetooth is turned on, but they're unable to find each other's devices. What's the next thing they should try? What do we think? Very good. Easy. So you have to make sure that the devices are in discoverable mode, right? You have to make sure that they can be discovered. If they can't be discovered by other devices, it's like they can't see each other, so they can't talk to each other, okay? Jane types itmessagekey.com into her browser only to receive an error message. She then tries several other websites and receives the same error message. She soon finds that her internet connection seems to be down. She goes to her IP settings and sees it starts with 169. What is the problem? What do we think? Super easy. Great. The DHCP server has not issued her device an IP. All right, the DHCP server cannot communicate, can't connect with you. You'll automatically be assigned an APIPA private address. With that address, you cannot leave your network. You cannot connect to another network. And the internet is outside of your network, so you wouldn't be able to connect to the internet. That's why she was getting that error message, okay? Angela requests that the desktop system she is buying is able to be used at her vacation home in another country, as well as at home in the US. The technician is aware that the country mentioned has different power requirements. Which of the following should Angela ensure the desktop contains? Easy. Dual voltage settings. So when you're in the US, you would have it on one voltage setting, which is like 110 to 120. And then when you go to other countries, you would change the voltage setting to a higher voltage. If you get the voltages wrong, it may be sending too much power and too many volts and too many watts to the device and actually blow up the damn computer. All right, so you want to make sure that you have proper voltage settings. Okay. All right, so that was the first part. That was 1001. Now let's rock out into 1002. So you take 1001, you pass, great. Now you run to 1002. Now this is another question that comes up a lot. Should I take both of these exams on the same day? I say hell no. But if you are super courageous and want to do it, I would say at least space it out a couple hours. Maybe take one at 9 o'clock, then take the other one at 3 o'clock. But just, you know, it's up to you. Because a lot of times when you get out of the box, even though it take you an hour, hour and a half to take the first test, your brain may be fried. And you don't want to, you know, get a W and then go and try and take this and get an L. So, you know, what is one day going to hurt? Just, you know, relax your mind, you know, you're okay, and then go take the exam the next day. But it's on you. That's just my advice. All right, so on the first part, you got to get a 675. On the second part, you got to get a 700. Everything else, exactly the same. You got 90 questions and you get 90 minutes, okay? These are the domains that's going to be covered on the 1002: operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, and operational procedures. So even with the last one, even though the domain areas say this, you say, oh, it's only 20%, 26% software troubleshooting. There's troubleshooting in each one of these. There's security troubleshooting, operating system troubleshooting, procedures troubleshooting. Every question is damn near, you know, it broke. How did it break? Who broke it? You know, what do we do to stop it from breaking? It's a bunch of scenarios like that. So like I said, get your troubleshooting game up and you'll be fine. Ronald receives an email requesting his username and password. The email looks to be from a legitimate source, but Ronald was unsure. What kind of email could this be? Easy. Phishing. So if that damn picture didn't give you a clue, it's phishing. So phishing, literally just like it sounds, fishes for information. You know, asks some probing questions, hoping that you're not on your A game and that you actually divulge some information. All right, so like I said, the questions usually are pretty long, but good news is I got you. Just make sure that when you get in there, you're able to grab all the information that you need and discard anything you don't. All right. Jasmine works for Master IT as a global brand ambassador. While at Master IT headquarters, she overhears a conversation technicians are having. The techs report that several technicians have been unable to solve an ongoing problem a customer is having. The customer begins to become frustrated and demands a technician comes out to fix the problem because they do not understand the steps the techs provided. After the technician has effectively communicated a willingness to help, which of the following is the next step? Don't think too hard on this one. Easy. Identify the problem, figure out what the hell is going on, and then finish the troubleshooting process after that. Okay? All right, Lenny has intermittent connectivity on his work laptop. A notification states he and another machine have duplicate IPs. What most likely has happened? Easy. IP address conflict. So within a network, two IP addresses having the same IP address just isn't going to work. All right. So if you manually assign IP addresses, you may forget and you'll assign one laptop, one IP address, and then you'll assign the same IP address to another laptop. And we already know that an IP address is your logical address. That's how the network knows where to send stuff. Oh, you're asking for this, so let me send it to you. Makes sense? It's just like if two houses on the same street have the same address, the mailman won't know where the hell to deliver the packages. Makes sense? All right. Call up the drivers for his mouse, restarts his machine, then goes to the store. Once he comes back home, he hops onto his machine. The mouse seems to jump around the screen and disappear at times. What's the first thing Carl should do? Easy. Roll back to drivers. So rolling back to drivers just means that you go back to the previous driver that worked and seemed not to have any compatibility issues. Okay? All right. So that was a quick overview of A+. Now we're going to get into Network Plus. Network Plus, unlike A+, is a one-part test. You go in there, rock it out, knock it out, pass. But it has a strong emphasis on networking, okay? So let's go ahead and get straight into it. So on this one, you got to get a 720 out of 900. Everything else is the same. Maximum of 100 questions. You're usually only going to see around 90 or less, and you got 90 minutes to complete the test, okay? So this is a breakdown of Network Plus. You got network concepts, infrastructure, network operations, network security, and network troubleshooting and tools. Just remember, each one of these domain areas, or it might as well just be one domain area, and it just needs to say troubleshooting, all right? Because most of the questions are going to be scenario-based, and it's a scenario that you need to figure out what's the problem and how do you fix it. All right, here we go. Katie enters her username and password once. She has access to several applications without having to re-enter her credentials. I almost had a seizure. Excuse me. She has access to several applications without having to re-enter her credentials. What is this an example of? Too easy. Single sign-on. So single sign-on, you sign on once, but you have access to several applications, right? So let's say just like a bunch of websites now have sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook, sign in with sign in with blah, blah, blah. So if I sign in on Facebook and go on another website, instead of having to create a username and password for that site, I can actually sign in and authenticate with my credentials from Facebook. So single sign on, I sign on one time, but I have access to several things. Make sense? All right, a technician needs to enter a username and password and have their fingerprint scanned to access a server. This is an example of what type of authentication? What do we think? Too easy. Two-factor. So two-factor authentication means that you need to use two different things to authenticate and prove who you are. So username and password is one, and the fingerprint is the other. So why isn't username and password? That's two different things, right? Why isn't that not two-factor? Because when it comes to authentication, there's a couple different ways you can authenticate. Something the user knows, something the user has, something the user is, somewhere the person is, and something that the person does. All right, let me run it back. Stuttering ass. Something the user knows, something the user does, something the user is, something the user has, somewhere where the person is, right? And for it to be two-factor, it has to be two or more of those things. This is two-factor because username and password is something the user knows. Fingerprint is something the user is. When I say something the user is, it's biometrics. So iris scan, fingerprint scan, voice recognition, that kind of stuff, okay? You need to purchase a new switch to support VoIP phones and wireless access points in a new building. What is the most important when it comes to VoIP phones and wireless access points? Another thing, when you're inside the box, when you're in there thinking, have tunnel vision, all right? Don't use outside things. Don't think about the question more you need to. Think about the question and the answers, the questions and the answers. So don't think about anything else other than the questions and the answers. What is most important when it comes to this? Out of these answers, what's the most important? Too easy. Quality of service, QoS, which is going to prioritize the traffic. Then power over Ethernet, which is going to allow power over the Ethernet for the switches, so on and so forth. Another thing, this is the first one that we ran across really that had acronyms. That's another thing that's going to whoop your ass in the test. Make sure that whenever you see an acronym that you don't know what it is, whenever you see an acronym that you're not quite sure about, that you ensure that you look it up, figure out what it stands for, what it does, and what will happen if it's not working right. Make sense? All right. So this is a little math. We won't go too deep into it. And this is a thing that kind of scares people. I don't know why. But when you're a network administrator, right, you don't want to waste a bunch of IP addresses. So there's something called subnetting that allows you to subnet and make sub networks off of your main network to ensure that you don't waste any IP addresses, right? Now, once again, I'm actually going to link a video to the whole breakdown, how to subnet, so on and so forth. But just understand, when you see this right here is not going to be the reason that you failed the test, okay? So don't get scared about this, because a lot of students spend way too much time on this when they actually need to spend more time on troubleshooting, okay? So how many subnets and hosts per subnet can you get from that network? You can get 4,096 hosts and 14 subnets. This means that I can put 4,096 devices, laptops, printers, whatever I want. That's how many IP addresses I can get from that. And I can have 14 sub networks underneath my main network, okay? All right, gang, so we moving right along. Knocked out A+, knocked out Net+, and here goes our first step into cybersecurity, Security Plus. Here we go. So this one, you need the highest passing score out of all of the stuff we talked about. So A+, you need a 675 and a 700. On Network Plus, you need a 720. On this, you need a 750. All right, 750 out of 900. And just like I said before, all of these exams are going to have simulations at the beginning. All right, not a question answer, but simulations. You're going to have 100 questions and 90 minutes to complete the test, just like all the other exams we talked about. Let's go ahead and get straight into the questions. Maybe not. I forgot about this part. All right, so the domain areas: threats, attacks, and vulnerabilities, technologies and tools, architecture and design, identity and access management, risk management, cryptography, and PKI. Run through a couple questions. Jamal, a penetration tester, has received zero information about his next client. He is to perform a penetration test in 15 minutes. What type of testing is he most likely to perform? So a penetration test is pretty much a test to see how good is my security. I got firewalls, I got an IPS, I got an IDS, I got all types of safeguards on my network and my organization. Let me hire an outside hacker penetration tester to see where my weaknesses are. All right, that's the point of it, all right? So what do we think? Too easy. Black box. Black box is literally where you don't give the penetration tester any information, nothing at all. It's just like if a hacker from the outside was trying to break into your network, you don't give them any information, and then they tell you to give you a report like, hey, this firewall sucks, or for some reason this device doesn't have any antivirus. And a lot of times it's not always logical. Most of the time it's not logical. It's going to be all the way from the onset. Like, okay, at nighttime, you don't have any lights on in the parking lot, you know, and I saw that the door back there was unlocked. I actually went in and went upstairs and stole some laptops, so on and so forth. So the penetration test is to see how deep they can penetrate into your network, okay? You've created an authentication server. Your main concern is to ensure there is mutual delegation and authentication. This will happen via a process of ticket granting tickets. Keyword tickets. What technology are you using? Easy. Kerberos. So out of those, that is the only one that grants that has anything to do with any kind of tickets at all. And like I said, as we've been going through this stuff, just make sure that you're pulling out those little things, all right? Because the other answers kind of don't make sense. Once you see ticket granting ticket, that is Kerberos. Ticket granting ticket, that's Kerberos, all right? So that's kind of how quick you have to be inside of the box. Because remember, you only got 90 minutes. All right. Tim, an analyst, has developed code for a new program. The program is currently being evaluated by team members. The feedback from Tim's team members will be used to improve any issues with the code. What is this process called? The way I'm stuttering, you wouldn't believe that I actually made these damn questions though. All right, so now what do we think? He made a code, his buddies is looking at it, his team members is looking at it, and any feedback that he gets from them, he'll actually try to improve that code. What do we think that's called? What is that process called? Easy, peer review. So his peers review it, and they're his trusted colleagues, so whatever they say, you know, he'll evaluate it and make improvements to the code. All right, ERNEST finds a folder with a bunch of documents related to past customers. The documents have information regarding the customer's birth dates, addresses, and phone numbers. ERNEST turned these documents in to his information assurance rep. The documents will be classified as what? Easy. Personal identifiable information. All right. Personal identifiable informations. Birth dates, addresses, and phone numbers is things that you can identify a person with. All right. Personal identifiable information. All right. All right, gang. So just a few extra tips. Like I said, acronyms. If you don't know what an acronym stands for, stop what you're doing, look it up. What does it stand for? What does it do? What happens if it breaks? And how do I fix it if it breaks? On the actual exam, make sure if it says choose all that apply, choose all that apply. Now, let's say it says choose all that apply. It's not going to, no buzzer is going to go off. It's going to be a green or a red light. If you're supposed to pick 3 and you only pick 2, then you won't get, full credit or any credit for that question. If it says, what's the next step? You got to read through the question. What's the very next thing you should do after whatever that person completed? What's the first step? What's the very first thing you should do whenever this problem arises? What's the last step? What's the very last thing you should do? And what's the best option? All right. Least expensive, most expensive, so on and so forth. All right. All right, gang. So our time has come to an end. I know this is super sad. You don't want to see, me go, and you don't have to, because another reason that I made this video is because I'm dropping or coming out with a CompTIA trifecta bundled practice test course, right? So in the course, you're going to have A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus, and it's going to be set up just like the exam. So you're going to have 90 questions, 90 minutes. On each exam is going to make you a lot more proficient with analytical and critical thinking. And even on top of that, you're going to get a test prep lecture before each exam. So we got one for the 1001, one for the 1002, one for the Net Plus, one for the Security Plus, and they're about 30-45 minutes on average. Then after that, you go ahead and rock out the actual test questions. You head over to itmagickey.com. By the time this video comes out, it'll be complete. You can be one of the first ones to enroll, and it's going to help you to pass the exam. Other than that, make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Join a Facebook group so you can get inside of a community with other people that's doing the exact same thing as you. And you can listen to the podcast, or just look up Master IT on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so on and so forth. Other than that, let me know when you pass, and I'll see you in the next lecture.